All right, time for another video. And I don't think we've done a winterization video, but it's that time of the year. So we're putting Edna away for the winter. Where we are, we pretty much get cold, rain, snow, crummy weather starting in kind of October, November timeframe, and it usually goes until kind of March. So we've got probably 5 months or so that we're not planning on using her. And so we're going to blow out the water, so get all the water out of the tank, and we've already dumped the sewer when we got back from our last trip, so we don't have to worry about that. But we're going to blow out the water tank and all the water lines. We're going to set some mouse traps. We're going to hang and put in some desiccant. We're going to kind of just take everything out that we don't want to be there over the winter that could freeze or have problems. We'll put the cover on. We're not quite ready to put the cover on yet, but I've got some other videos where I talk about the cover. So I think that's the plan for winterization. As far as blowing the water out, I'll show you a little tool that I made for that. So I just got some parts on eBay basically and put this together with an airline and a threaded connector for the water inlet here, and on ours it's in the same cabinet as the electrical, and then I put a little ball valve on it so that I could turn the air on and off. So we'll get to this in just a minute. I'll talk a little bit about pressure and things like that. But first, I think we'll go inside and just drain all the water out of the tank that we've got and kind of get started with that. All right, so your experience will probably vary because I've set all this up myself and plumbed it. I think it's similar to the original setup, but probably not exactly. So if we look in here, we've got an accumulator and the pump and all of those things, and I've got a couple of valves down here so that I can, the pump comes through this way. I can open this valve, close this valve, and turn on the pump and basically pump all the water out of this drain that I've got right here. So that's how I'll empty out the tank, and then once the tank is empty, then I can start blowing out the lines and kind of making sure everything else is clear of water. All right, not a very exciting shot here, but this is the pump pumping all the water out of the tank through that drain that I showed, and let's let this run until all that water's out of the tank. All right, we have a valve here in the wheel well, which is underneath the water heater, so your experience may vary on that, but I've opened this up to drain out the water heater and open a faucet inside to help it kind of just drain out all the way. But we want to get as much water out of the system as we can before we start pushing air through just to get the last bit out. All right, so I've got my airline hooked up here. One thing I forgot to mention on the water heater drain out, make sure that you've got the water heater turned off. So we leave ours off most of the time except when we're using it, but if you're draining all the water out, you want to make sure it's not going to turn on when you plug in or something and burn out the elements in it. So now I've got most of the tanks drained, so I got the water heater and the main water tank drained, and so now I'm just going to blow some air through and open each of the faucets, open a couple of the drain points, and blow all the water I can out of the system just to clean out the last bit. Now, I turned the pressure down on my air compressor to like 25 pounds, 25 PSI, because I want to make sure I'm not over pressurizing the system. I think my water pump runs at 35 or 40 PSI. So 25 should be fine to push the water out and not damage anything. So I've already got it hooked up, so I'll just open this up and start going around and opening up some of the drains. I've got the drain for the water heater open right now just to blow the last bit out there. All right, so I pressurized the system and it was just like 20 pounds. And then I opened a couple of the drain valves on the outside of the coach, like the water heater, and it was already empty, so it just blew air. So then I came in, opened the hot and cold on the sink, basically caught it in a bowl so I could throw it out and not have water sitting in the holding tank. I also did the shower head and the bathroom, and just there's a little bit of water that came out that was just kind of in the pipes. Like there's a pipe that goes over the top of the ceiling to come over here to the sink, and so that's when you definitely want to get blown out and cleared out so that it doesn't break somewhere inconvenient. But blew all the water out. Now I'm going to go around and put some of this antifreeze. This is RV antifreeze, so RV marine. It is non-toxic, so I'm going to mostly put it in the drains, but I'll also pump a little bit into the pump and the accumulator, because I want to make sure that they have some of the antifreeze in them, just to make sure there's no water caught inside of those that could expand and break them. But I'm going to put it in all the sink drains, so the traps have some antifreeze in them. Also the toilet bowl, so that it doesn't dry out the seals. We'll just have some of the antifreeze sitting in the toilet over the winter. Okay, so the blowing out and getting all the water out and everything is kind of the biggest piece of the winterization. A few other things, so just check the tire pressure, make sure that they're aired up. I mentioned that we'll put the cover on. We've got a video about the cover that we use. We, of course, took out all the food, anything that's perishable, even cleaning supplies and things that are water-based. We took those out just to make sure they don't freeze. But yeah, you want to just kind of clean out all the cupboards. We have some airtight sealed plastic storage bins that we put everything in, and then just put it in a closet in the house until next year to just kind of keep it all together. And then a few things that we do out here. So we have heard that peppermint extract can help ward off mice. And so we get this and put it on like cotton pads and put it around various places where we've seen mice in the past. So anywhere we think they might be traveling around the coach. We did also spend some time putting metal screen and steel wool and expanding foam in kind of every opening, gap, anything that we could find on the outside of the coach, and even in some of the inside places where we thought mice might be getting in or moving around the coach. So hopefully that'll help cut down on our mice problem. I think last year we probably caught, I don't know, maybe 10 mice in the coach over the winter. They kind of come and go depending on when it warms up and things, but it's definitely been a problem in the past, so we're trying to keep that under control. We also put out some of these mouse traps. So we like these ones because they're a single-use thing. The mouse goes in, they snap closed and kill the mouse and keep it all contained, and then you just see that it has caught a mouse and throw it away, put a new one out. Apparently the mice in our area are not big fans of peanut butter or other things, but they really like pistachios. So we put some various nuts in there to, bring them in, but the pistachios seem to do a good job. And then we'll also put out a bunch of desiccant. So I kind of like these self-contained desiccant containers, and you just open it up, set it out on, we'll do it on the table, kind of front and back. We also usually get some hanging ones. I'll put a link in the description to the hanging ones that we also get. I don't have any right now. We'll have to get them from Amazon. But that is pretty much it as far as winterization. I do check fluids, things like that. Oh, I guess one other item. We do always fill up the fuel tanks. And so we generally run ethanol-free fuel in our coach. And so I fill it up all the way with ethanol-free fuel. I also put in some Sta-bil to help kind of keep the fuel good over the winter. And we've done it the last few years, and it works great. So in the spring, typically, with just a little bit of cranking, it'll fire back up and do fine. So I think those are all of the key points. I'll maybe add some comments if I think of something later, but really getting the water system taken care of is kind of one of the most important things, because you don't want to have any broken lines, broken pumps. Actually, our first winter we didn't do as good a job, and we had a problem with the accumulator. The accumulator tank cracked and wasn't working anymore, so we had to replace that. So learned a little bit in that first winter to make sure that we're blowing everything out really well and putting a little antifreeze in things. So I think that sums it up, and we'll see how things go over the winter.